Hey, what is up, everybody? Depraved Slasher here, and we are back with something a little different. I wanted to do a tier list because I think it'd be fun to tier video game franchises. Now, this obviously isn't going to have every video game franchise out there, and I could have custom made one, but that would have taken probably fucking days. And I wanted to get something out for Mother's Day, and I know this isn't very Mother's Day related, but it's at least something. And what this is, as you can see, this is a list of tons of video game franchises, and what we are going to do, we are going to place them in tiers, and this is how I have my tiers. So at the very top we have the best of the best. These are the games, franchises that I think outshine everything else. Then you're going to have not the best but would play again. These are games that I thoroughly enjoyed, but I would not rank them amongst my top tier. Then we've got worth a playthrough. And those are your games that are at least worth, in my opinion, one playthrough in the for the franchise. And then you have games that are not for me. There's something that you guys have to understand. I will never say something sucks, something is trash, something is garbage, because as long as there's a fan base out there for it, whether it be in music, movies, or video games, or any kind of entertainment, as long as there is a fan base out there for it, it's not garbage. It may not be something that you don't like, but just because you don't like something doesn't make it trash. Okay? So you'll never really hear me say that. So these games will go under not for me. These are just games that I just didn't really personally like, and they're not really my cup of tea. Then after that, you've got felt like wasted time. These are the games that are a bit worse than not for me. These are the ones where I legit feel like I've wasted time and or money. Where I feel like I could have benefited from doing something else heavily. And then you've got never played it. Of course, obviously, games where I've never played them will go in that category, and some of your favorites will go in those categories. Now, I understand I'm going to catch a lot of hate for this, some of my selections, and some of my opinions. I don't care. This is my list, and if you don't like it, fuck off. No. Seriously, though, list what your differences would be. I'm open for you guys having discussions about it, and I'm kidding. Don't fuck off. I love you guys. But with that being said, and without further ado, let's proceed. So I'm actually just going to go on the list that they give it. So first, we've got Bioshock. For those of you that don't know, I love the Bioshock series, and by series I mean I love Bioshock 1 and Infinite. I think 2 was not written by the same person that did Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite, and you can tell. It does not feel like a true Bioshock game. But with that being said, Bioshock 1 was right up there, in my opinion, for Game of the Year with the original very first Assassin's Creed. They both came out in the same year. I would have given the edge to the very first Assassin's Creed, and while I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, that game is so boring, it's repetitive. Yes, the gameplay is repetitive, but the story, and for me, the most important aspect of any game ever will be story, which Bioshock has an amazing story too, do not get me wrong. But I was just more pulled into the Assassin's Creed story for its time because of the setting and everything like that. However, like I said, I loved Bioshock. The very end of Bioshock 1 and especially the very end of Bioshock Infinite were magnificent. So what we're going to do, we're going to place Bioshock under not the best, but would play... I'm kidding. Of course it's going under best of the best. I did that just for you, Joy and Tana. No, I will rank it up there with best of the best. It is an amazing game franchise. I think we were blessed to have the games that we got that year, and I definitely cannot wait to... Well, I don't think they're going to do any more Bioshock games, which is a bummer, but I hope they do. I would love to see it. Next, you've got House of the Dead. For those of you that do not know what House of the Dead is, that is this little emblem down here. House of the Dead is an on-rail shooter, and House of the Dead 3, I think, was the one that I played the most of on Dreamcast. And it's just an on-rail shooter where you're cruising around in... What an on-rail shooter is, for those of you that don't know, let me explain that first. It's typically you don't move. All you do is you point your gun and you fire. And usually they come with a gun peripheral for whatever you're playing, where you aim at the TV and you shoot. I don't think House of the Dead had it, or at least if it did, we didn't have one. We used the controller and just had a cursor on the screen. But you shoot some bad guys on the screen and it moves to another place. You see them mostly in arcades. House of the Dead, I think, was a good game. Very fun. One of my favorite lines ever in gaming, and I've quoted it and had people very confused. There's a part in early House of the Dead, like I said, I believe it's 3, where there's this little demon that's like, you're talking to him, and he says something like, he looks at you and says something like, "Suffer like G did?" And it's just so creepy and edgy the way it sounds. Very fun. Like I said, I quote it sometimes, even with the conclusion being mass confusion. Again, I will definitely place this under worth a playthrough. I don't think it is a great franchise. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is an on-rails shooter. But like I said, it's worth a playthrough. If you have a chance to play it, I'd play through it once. It's definitely fun with a friend because it is 2 players. Check it out. Next, we got Saints Row. Oh, Saints Row. Here's the thing. The little bit of Saints Row I've played was fun. But I am a die-hard Grand Theft Auto fan. And I always felt like Saints Row was more of a knockoff Grand Theft Auto. They tried too hard to be funny. A Grand Theft Auto, like, the humor in Saints Row felt forced, whereas the humor in Grand Theft Auto came off naturally. Especially with, like, Grand Theft Auto 4, the way Trevor, Michael, and the other guy, Marcus, was it Marcus? I think it was Marcus, I don't remember. But the way they all merged together and the things they said to each other was hilarious. But like I said, with Saints Row, it just felt forced and outlandish. And this is a game that a lot of you guys will be a little upset, every franchise, a lot of you guys will be upset where I place this, but I'm going to place this under not for me. It's just not my typical style of game. Next, we've got Metal Gear. And Metal Gear is one of the most important franchises in the last 15 years. It redefined the stealth genre. But the funny thing is, I don't like stealth games. And it's because I prefer, if I am able to go in quote-unquote guns blazing, if at all possible. And for me, the story for Metal Gear was very convoluted and very hard to keep up with. But again, I will not take away anything from it and what it has meant to the gaming industry. And Hideo Kojima is an amazing mind, and it makes me so sad that Silent Hills got shelved, dude, with all that shit. But we're not going to fall too deep into that. Metal Gear is also going to go beside Saints Row for me as far as a game that's just not for me. I tried playing Metal Gear Solid 2 on several occasions. I tried it 3 separate times, and I get about 3 hours into it, and I stopped playing. It's just, it does not pique my interest. That style of stealth is just, it's a bit much for me. Next, we've got, all right, I was right, that is Forza. As you can tell, I don't play Forza. I don't play racing games, really. Not anymore, anyways. But Forza, I mean, it looks beautiful. It really does. But, like, actual, like, technical racing games like that are not my thing. I can't down talk it. I can't up talk it. It's more of like a sports title because that's what racing games are. So, once again, it's going to be another game that's going to go into not for me. I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, but Forza's so amazing. I mean, that's everyone's got an opinion. Next up, we got Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a franchise that pulled me away from playing Halo. I played a crap ton of Halo growing up. However, at some point, someone introduced me. It was around the time I was playing Halo 3. They introduced me to Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And I never went back to Halo multiplayer. I've tried, and I just couldn't because of the realism of the Call of Duty franchise. And I mean, Call of Duty has its ups and downs. It's like a wild roller. It looks like the stock market, the way their roller coaster ride has gone. They've had some great entries. They've had some terrible entries. Not really terrible. Not for me entries, I guess, would be technical. However, the problem is they've seemed to have shelved, in my opinion, at their peak. And that was with Modern Warfare 2. Like, for me, Modern Warfare 2 was the pinnacle of, like, the very tip top of Call of Duty. And then Modern Warfare, or then, like, Black Ops came out around that time. And I was not a fan of Treyarch's games. I'm definitely more of a fan of Infinity Ward's. And then, like, Modern Warfare 3 was good, but it wasn't as good to me as Modern Warfare 2. I'm actually hoping for a Modern Warfare 2 remake. I would be thrilled. So with that being said, I'm actually going to place it under not the best in the world, but would play, or not the best, but would play again, because I know I'm going to end up playing some Call of Duty again somewhere down the line. All right, next up we got Sonic. Sonic, oh Sonic. Sonic is a legend in the gaming industry. People love Sonic. What can I say? I love Sonic. Sonic's an amazing game. But the problem is trying to go back to play Sonic games is really hard, because where we've evolved and grown with Mario, Sonic has tried to do the same and has not done it well. They have not translated into 3D environments well, because it's hard to pull off moving very fast in a 3D manner. At least when it comes to like platforming games, which is what Sonic is. He's a platformer. But Mario has, with Mario 64, Mario Odyssey, and while they weren't my favorites, Mario Galaxy was also good, and Mario Sunshine. I mean, so Mario does 3D well. Sonic, I still have not played a Sonic game that's in 3D that I've enjoyed. So here's where I'm going to put Sonic. I am going to put Sonic under worth of playthrough, because it is worth a playthrough. He's a legend. They're fun. But that also comes with a very huge asterisk. Sonic 1, 2, and 3, and Sonic and Knuckles are worth a playthrough. Everything else past that point, I don't know. They're just not for me. Next up, we've got Metroid, another legend in the gamescape, but my problem is I am not good at, what are they called? Metroidvania games. I am terrible at Metroidvania games. I tried playing Metroids, it was like Super Metroid, or maybe it was the first Metroid, on the Nintendo Online service, and I stink. It's just not my style. And Samus is one of the best video game characters of all times. But again, I am just terrible at Metroidvania games, guys. I am. So, Metroid, I'm sorry, but you've got to go to not for me, because it's not my style of game. It's just not. Next up, we've got The Witcher Wild Hunt. I'm going to make this quick and sweet. This is going to be one that you guys hate me for. I've never played it. Fun fact, I own it. I own Witcher 3, exactly. With all the DLC. I have never played it. I've never played a Witcher game. Ever. And the problem with Witcher is the same problem that falls in line with me for the other games, like Elder Scrolls games. Elder Scrolls looks amazing. I would love to play it, but my problem is I don't want to put anything more than about 60 to 80 hours into a video game. I just don't, because if I put more than 60 to 80 hours in a video game, I feel like I'm missing out on so much more. And it's funny, because the way my life has changed, like, I used to be able to sit down and put some hours into a video game, like Final Fantasy VIII, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Dude, I sat there and I beat Final Fantasy VIII, 100%ed it, like getting all the collectibles and everything at least one time, and I almost did it twice, but I've beaten the game like 6, 7 times. And I just can't, like, I could sink that much time when I was a kid. And then I got married, and I had kids, and I had less time, so that's when I started getting more into the Call of Duties and stuff like that, because instead of playing something for the story, because I don't like to just sit down and play story-based games and story-driven games like that for 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, an hour here, an hour there. When I sit down to game and it's story-related, I want to put 6 to 12 hours into it. I mean, God of War on the PlayStation 4, I finished in 2 streams, and I did not play that game off stream. That's how much I put into that game. 2 10-and-a-half-hour streams. Back-to-back days. And that's my problem, and it's something I'm trying to work on as well and trying to get out of, is if I can't beat a game in a weekend after I get it, I feel like I don't like that feeling of wondering what's going to happen next and having to go to work and have it sit on my mind. And I'm trying to get out of that, I really am. And I eventually do want to get to The Witcher. I may even stream it since I've never played it. I think I picked it up on sale last year for like $10, $12, something like that. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, Need for Speed. I'm going to go ahead and put Need for Speed on Worth a Playthrough. I'm going to put it on Worth a Playthrough because I played a lot of Need for Speed Undergrounds 1 and 2. Two of my favorite racing games of all time. Definitely worth a check out. I haven't played a Need for Speed since Underground 2 just because like I fell out of racing. But Need for Speed was a good franchise in my opinion. Mortal Kombat. I have not played Mortal Kombat 11 and it saddens me. 100% being completely honest. It fucking saddens me. But your boy's broke, so he can't really get it. I'll eventually get it. But Mortal Kombat for me definitely goes under best of the best. If you want to play a straight up fighting game, Mortal Kombat has gone out of its way to make sure it never really lets you down. Now I understand a lot of people have had their complaints with the way the crypt thing works, but from what I understand, they've also got that fixed now in the new one. So, I mean, that's good to hear. But the story, like, they had a lull shortly after Deadly Alliance. Deadly Alliance was like the last Mortal Kombat I played up until when they restarted the series at Mortal Kombat 10 or 9. Might have been 9. But after Deadly Alliance, they kind of got weird and like we're killing off people permanently in the story that people love to play with. Like, it was just weird. And then they did Mortal Kombat 9, which is a recreation of the entire story from the beginning. Like, Mortal Kombat 9 was actually the retelling of Mortal Kombat's 1, 2, and 3. Kind of. And then Mortal Kombat 10 was the telling of, like, Deadly Alliance and one of the others. And then I don't know what Mortal Kombat 11 is all about yet. I haven't played it. But Mortal Kombat, amazing series. Next up, we got Last of Us. I'm not even gonna front. Last of Us definitely goes up to the best of the best for me. Last of Us is in my top 5 favorite games I've ever played of all time. And I know a lot of you guys are like, how can you include a franchise that's only got one game? It is that damn good. That and somebody else put it on the list, so I put it on 9. I'm sorry. If you've not played Last of Us and you own a PS4, you're doing yourself a great disservice. The first Last of Us made me cry in the first 10 minutes I played the game. Legit shed tears. Those of you that played it know why. Those of you that don't, go play it. Go watch somebody else play it. I'm telling you, play it. It's definitely worth the play. And it was a nice combination of being able to go all out shooting, and then there were sometimes you had to sneak around. And I streamed it earlier this year. Great game. Can't wait for 2. Have nothing else to say. Injustice. Injustice. How I have mixed feelings on you. Injustice 1, if this was just based off Injustice 1, this would be like I felt like wasted time. Here's my problem with Injustice. First off, it's DC. And I am admittedly a Marvel fanboy. I'm wearing Deadpool now, as you can see. The only DC hero up until I played Injustice 2, we'll get to that in a moment, the only DC hero I really knew a whole lot about was Batman. The DC hero I knew I hated the most, the superhero I hate the most is Superman. But that is the one thing Injustice did that I loved. They turned Superman to a bad guy, and I think he makes an amazing and interesting bad guy. Now, fast forward, Injustice 2 was coming out. A friend of mine was like, hey, you know what, Depraved, you should go get Injustice 2. And I was like, why? I hated Injustice 1. He was like, it looks really cool. Go watch some videos on it. And it hadn't come out yet, but he was like, hey, go watch a couple videos on it. And I was like, all right, let's go watch some videos. I watched 3 videos, and I was hooked. The whole clothing option system and how different sets of clothing do give you different stats and you could change the look and combine things was a huge plus for me. The story actually looked interesting. It had an interesting cast of characters. I'm sorry, all you Batgirl and Nightwing fans. I know they weren't in it. You'll live. So I bought it. And then all of a sudden they announced their first DLC pack. I went and bought the DLC pass because I was like, hell yeah, I want to play the DLC. And I'll tell you what, to this day, Injustice 2 has my favorite DLC character for a fighting game of all time. You know who that is? The Ninja Turtles. Dude, they put the Ninja Turtles in an Injustice game. You got to fight as the Ninja Turtles against your DC superheroes. Now, don't get me wrong, they did kind of screw up with one of the Injustice DLCs. Oh yeah, Mortal Kombat horror, by the way. That's another reason why they're on the best of the best. But I will say Injustice messed up by putting Raiden as extra DLC since they already had Sub-Zero, which is, by the way, my favorite Mortal Kombat character of all time. But, so as Injustice, I'm going to put it under, just because of 2, not the best, but would play again. Dead Space. Dead Space. First horror franchise we come across. You guys want to know what I think about Dead Space? My favorite Dead Space in the entire series is 3, and it's most of your guys' most hated. Do you want to know why it's my favorite Dead Space in the entire series? Because it's one you get to play with a friend. And something that they did that I loved is there's a certain segment in the game where the person that's playing the main character is seeing something in front of him that is completely different than the person that's playing the other character. Like, there's this vision thing, and you have to describe it to each other and talk about it to each other to figure out what's going on. And it was just so cool how they did that. So here's my problem. I guess House of the Dead is technically a horror franchise, but it's an on-rail shooter. There's no jump scares or nothing. Anyways, Dead Space. My first problem is I don't like sci-fi horror. Okay? I don't like the whole horror in space. The only sci-fi horror I think I can actually sit here and tell you I absolutely love 100% is Predator, who's in Mortal Kombat 10, by the way. But, like, the Aliens movies, I will praise them and say that they are deserving of the legendary status that they are. But they're just not for me. I own them. I still own them. But they're just not for me. I like slashers, I like paranormal, stuff like that. Once you get into sci-fi horror, you're kind of like, what was it, Jason X? Oh, don't even get me started on Jason X. Anyways, or Leprechaun in Space. Yeah, just not my cup of tea. I'm sorry. We're going to put it under not for me. And one of the things I hated was the attempt at cheap jump scares where they'd have enemies drop down behind you in the vents, and it's like it's supposed to scare you, but for me it was just kind of like, oh great, another annoyance. Pac-Man, I'm just gonna put under not for me. He has one of the coolest sounds in the world, when he's eating. But I can't sit down and just play a Pac-Man game. Like I could play it for like 3 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I need some substance. I first started playing video games on the regular Nintendo, so I actually got to start off with like the original Super Mario Brothers, which was cool, which was a bit more advanced than Pac-Man. And it's really hard for me to go back and play not so advanced games like back on like Atari days and stuff like that. And it's nothing against them as games; they're just not for me. It's kind of like how a lot of you that are probably going to watch this are going to look at it and be like, oh yeah, I grew up on the Xbox and the Xbox 360, and I can't go back and play like the original Mario Brothers. Like, I understand where you're coming from, I really do. It sucks, just like the people that grew up on Atari are going to be like, it sucks, but, I mean, you kind of got to understand. Next up, we got Castle Crashers. Castle Crashers, I'm going to put on not the best, but would play again. It is a fun cooperative experience, especially if you can get 4 full people together, running around, killing bad guys, raiding castles, nice little side-scroll beat 'em up, leveling up. It's just a fun little, basically kind of like a party game. Definitely worth the checking out. But like I said, in my opinion, I'd play it again.